Okay, welcome everyone to my next video. It's Dave here. Today the topic is going to be on sexual energy and spiritual awakening. If you're going through Kundalini awakening or any type of spiritual awakening, it's a pretty hard topic to ignore. It's going to be sort of a part of the process for a lot of people. And since I've been going through this for quite a while now, over 12 years, I've kind of got a bird's eye view on things, and I just wanted to share my opinion and my thoughts on the connection between the two and what you should do. And specifically, we're going to be talking about abstinence. Should you abstain from sex and sexual activity while you're going through your spiritual awakening, or should you not? What do you do? Because I see a lot about this. And it doesn't mirror or match with my own experience. I think there's some pretty strong sort of guidelines when you get into sort of alchemy and Kundalini about abstaining, and I'm not sure that's always the best answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some guidelines based on what I've experienced over the last number of years, and to help you focus on what's best for you, because I don't really think there's an across-the-board answer that's going to apply for everyone. You should kind of know what your situation is and make decisions based on that. So I think there's going to be sort of 4 major factors which affect whether you decide if you want to go through any abstinence, or even if you should. And it's going to be your health status, it's going to be your age, it's going to be your emotional status, and with respect specifically to what your beliefs are and your root motivations are around sexuality, which can be, a problem for a lot of people, for sure. How far do you want to take this? Like, how high up the scale of spiritual awakening, how high up that ladder do you want to climb? What is realistic for you in your life, and what you have to balance your spiritual awakening with just daily activities such as taking care of your kids or going to work and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to go over those things and see if you can apply what works for you. So there's definitely a belief out there that you should abstain from sex for higher spiritual awakening. And I think a lot of that comes from a place of fear. Your life force energy is unlimited. Unfortunately, our access to that life force energy is limited. We don't have unlimited access to it. And because of that, it's a limited resource. Excuse me. And I think that there is a fear that you don't have enough. And if you don't have enough, then you have to sort of restrict or cap your sexual activity to make sure that you have enough. And this is sort of a fear-based belief, I think, that can drive some people into some pretty unhealthy sort of suppression of their sexual activity. So there is, of course, you can overdo it. Absolutely. There's the underexpression, and there's the hyper or the overexpression. And so if you're burning through your sexual energy, especially if you're a male, because every time a male has an orgasm, that energy and life force leaves their body. In males, that energy is being depleted through too much sexual activity. And so men in particular can lose their power and their energy and their life force that way if they're overdoing it. So, if you're overdoing it, of course you should curtail it. But if you have an unhealthy repression where you're trying to force your sexual energy down, when you're not mentally, emotionally ready for it, that's going to come back to bite you later on. Probably the pendulum might swing too far the other way, and you're going to be really polarized between trying to force it down and then being unable to control it and having an unhealthy expression of it. And so that's really a situation you want to avoid, for sure. So First off, your health status. I think if you're generally healthy and there's no issues with your health, there's sort of guidelines dependent upon that and your age category, your age group. So if you're generally healthy and you're in your 20s and you're trying to harness sexual energy for spiritual awakening, 2 times a week probably is fine. I don't think there's any issue with that, and I don't think you're going to run out of any sexual energy. If you're in your 30s, maybe 1 time a week is sort of a goal to maybe look forward to, sort of a target that you can sort of hit. And if you're in your 40s, maybe once every 2 weeks. And if you're in your 50s, maybe once every 3 weeks to a month, because our life force and vitality does naturally decrease as we age. And so you kind of want to see where you are in your age category, but also your health status. And if your health status is not that good, if you have some chronic health issues, digestive issues, if you're in chronic pain or you've got chronic inflammatory conditions in your body, those types of issues drain your life force. And so you do actually want to maybe curtail your sexual activity a little bit more, because that energy is going to be needed for nourishing and healing and trying to repair and regenerate the body. So if your health status is not that good, then you actually do want to restrict your activity a little bit more. But let's talk about maybe the mental, emotional aspect, because I think this is probably the biggest aspect and the biggest driver of people's sexual activity. And so when the energy starts to move up through your energy centers, as it goes through the lower chakras, there are a lot of issues that have to be cleared with most people regarding their sexuality. We all have a lot of drama and trauma surrounding that, and a lot of unhealthy beliefs and unhealthy desires that surround that issue. And so what you want to do is you want to know your root motivation for your behavior, your sexual behavior, and why you're behaving that way. And it really takes a level of self-awareness and self-knowledge to understand where that's coming from. So there can be healthy motivations for sexual expression, and there can be very unhealthy motivations for sexual expression. If you have been taught that sex is shameful or sinful, or you're ashamed of your body, or you're not sure what your sexual orientation is and you need to explore that, or you're just discovering sexuality for the first time, or you're just naturally curious, or there's sort of a loving expression of how you want to connect with a person, these are all good reasons to explore your sexuality. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're coming from those places, that actually enhances the flow of energy upwards, which is ultimately what you want to do for the spiritual awakening, is you want to adjust your sexual activity so it enhances the flow of energy. That's basically what we're looking for here. So I mean, those are all good situations where there's nothing wrong with, and there should be no guilt or shame or embarrassment around sexual activity. And if that's where you're coming from, then maybe you actually do want to increase and explore and do that, and make sure it's within a healthy boundary, so that enhances the flow of energy upwards through your energy channels. However, on the flip side, if you are coming from a place where, and this can be, sex can very much be an addiction, and it is for a lot of people. Sex can be a way people control, a way people manipulate others, using sex to get what you want, using sex to get someone to perhaps like you or pay attention to you, or if you're root beliefs around your sexual activity are for bragging rights or just to satisfy your own ego and inflate your own ego. You know, it can be a way of sort of medicating pain. It can be an energy grab, because when you're very, very tired, sometimes sex or masturbation can be a way that you boost your energy. So there's all these ways that the root motivation behind your activity and what you do is actually going to reinforce energy blockages within the body. And that's not what you want to do for spiritual awakening. So you have to know what your root motivation is for your activity. And you want to come from generally a loving, more pure, more wholesome type of place to enhance the flow of energy upwards. And if you can do that, then you don't have to suppress. You do not have to repress. You do not have to fully abstain and force yourself into an abstinence that you're not ready for yet. The final point is, how far do you want to take your spiritual awakening process? There are levels and levels and levels, an infinite amount of levels that you can take your spiritual awakening, and what is realistic for you with your lifestyle and your life. If someone is fully dedicated and fully committed, and this is their life mission, and this is what they know they're here to do, then of course you will have to sort of restrict a little bit more, because of course, like we said, you do not have, like I said earlier, you don't have unlimited access to this energy, especially at earlier stages of the game. However, as your energy channels open up naturally, as sort of the clogs become, the clogged pipes become unclogged, there's just a natural general flow of energy upwards, up, back, down the front, up the middle of the body, down through your arms and your legs, where this energy just starts to flow naturally. And when this happens, your sort of set point of happiness and bliss and pleasure just sort of raises like quite a bit. And as that happens, and as the channels open up, there's more room for the energy to move upwards. It moves away from your sexual energy center and from your genitals, and you just don't feel as aroused anymore because it's spreading through your body all the time. When that happens, there is sort of a natural decrease in your physical desire, because you're just in more of a state of bliss all the time. So why do I need to kind of grab that as a pick-me-up or something to give me pleasure, right? And so that fades away, and it's a natural part of the process. And if you're coming to the point where that sort of just naturally it's like a snake shedding its skin. It's a process that naturally happens, and your desire just happens to go away because there's so much energy moving up and you're feeling so good all the time. Then that's sort of when the natural abstinence will just start to set in. You won't have to force it. You won't have to control it. You won't have to repress it to meet the end goal. You're just sort of in a natural spot where it's just happening anyways. And so if you get to that point, then just let it happen. And so usually when you get to that phase, that's when, like I said, you won't need to force it, but your mindset will change because you've had so many experiences regarding your sexual energy that you won't see it in the same light anymore. You're going to see it through a completely different lens. You're just going to see it as energy. Not even sexual energy, but you'll just see it as energy without any attachment to your sexuality or your sexual expression. And once you start to get into those higher stages of alchemy, that usually the sexual expression won't really hold that much weight over you anymore. It will just sort of fade away. That doesn't mean you can't do it if you don't want to, but your priorities change and your goals change and how you see the energy changes. So it'll just fade away. So if you get to the point where it can just naturally fade away, and that's happening, then that's fine. So what is your health? Are you very healthy? Then maybe you can afford a little bit more sexual activity. What is your age? The older you get, the more you do have to sort of curtail your activity as life force just generally gets lower as we age. You know, how much stress are you under? What is your root motivation? Are you coming from a positive place or a negative place when it comes to your sexual activity? Are you coming from a pure place? Are you coming from your heart? You really, really have to be mindful of the root of your behavior, because that determines whether your behavior allows the energy to move up, or the energy actually, your choices are actually reinforcing those energy blocks along the way, which stops the energy from coming up. And then how far do you want to take it? How high up do you want to go? The higher you want to go, the more you do have to conserve that energy within a reasonable framework. So yeah, those are the general guidelines. See if you can figure out where you are on that spectrum. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Drop a comment below, and thank you very much for watching. Take care.